Look at her. Emeka Okonkwo said it loudly enough for 6 people to hear. He was standing at the far end of the dining table at Chief Balogun's 50th birthday dinner in Victoria Island, Lagos, a glass of red wine in one hand and the full attention of 3 business associates and their wives locked on him like he was performing. And he was. After 1 child. He shook his head slowly, the way a man shakes his head at something he considers a disappointment. Completely shapeless. The laughter that followed was the awkward kind. The kind where 2 people chuckle because they don't know what else to do and one person goes very still. His wife, Adore, was standing 6 feet away in a wine-red gown holding a glass of juice, and she heard every single word. The woman beside her heard it too, because she turned and looked at Adore with that particular expression Nigerian women give each other when something painful has just been done in public and there is nothing to do but witness it. Adore did not cry. She smiled. The kind of smile that is assembled from the outside, piece by piece, while the inside is doing something completely different. She excused herself quietly, set her glass on the tray of a passing waiter, and walked toward the restroom with her shoulders back and her steps even. Inside the restroom, she gripped the edges of the sink and looked at herself in the mirror. She was 31 years old. She had a first-class degree in business administration from the University of Lagos. She had carried a human being in her body for 9 months, pushed that human being into the world, and then gone back to work 40 days later because her husband's logistics company was struggling and he needed her in the office. She had done all of this and she was standing in a bathroom in Victoria Island being held together by willpower and mascara because the man she had done it all for had just called her shapeless in front of people they both knew. She looked at her reflection for a long time. Then she dried her hands, straightened her gown, and walked back out. That was the night everything changed. But not in the way Emeka expected. Because Emeka Okonkwo thought he had married a woman. He had not understood, until much later, that he had married a plan. And the plan had been running quietly for weeks. 3 years before that dinner, Emeka had been a man with ambition but no infrastructure. He had a half-formed business idea, a second-hand Toyota, and a stubbornness that passed for confidence in certain lighting. Adore had seen something in him that she could not fully explain, not wealth, because there was none, not stability, because there was none of that either. She had seen hunger, and she had been young enough and in love enough to mistake hunger for direction. She had brought her own savings, 240,000 naira she had been putting away since her 2nd year of youth service. She had brought her father's contact in Apapa port who gave Emeka his first clearing contract. She had sat at a second-hand desk in a one-room office in Isale Eco and typed proposals and invoices and tracked payments while Emeka made calls and drove and hustled and slowly built something real. By year 2 of the company, they had 3 staff and a proper office in Ikeja. By year 3, they were doing international freight. By year 4, Emeka had moved them to a house in Lekki Phase 1 and started wearing custom Agbada to events and speaking at small business conferences about vision and execution, as though both of those things had come to him in a dream rather than across a shared desk in Isale Eco. The more he gained, the less he saw her. It started with small things. He stopped asking about her day. He stopped thanking her when she handled the accounts. He started referring to the business as "my company" in conversations where he had previously said "we." When she got pregnant, he was excited for about 2 weeks, then he became distant in a way he never fully explained, and after their son Tobena was born, the distance settled into the house like a piece of furniture and nobody moved it. She tried. She cooked and she kept the home and she went back to work and she was present at every business dinner and board meeting he brought her to, shaking hands and laughing at the right moments and reflecting back to his contacts the image of a man who had his life organized. She played her role so well that she disappeared inside it. And Emeka looked at his disappearing wife and decided the problem was her body. She had been the same dress size before pregnancy. Afterward, her hips were wider and her stomach had a softness to it that had not been there before. She was still beautiful, everyone who saw her said so, but Emeka had found something to focus on and he focused. He made comments at home. Subtle at first. You should try that gym Tun's wife goes to. Then less subtle. You've really not made any effort since Tabena. Then, at Chief Balagan's birthday dinner, not subtle at all. What he did not know was that 2 months before that dinner, Adore had found a message on his phone. She had not been looking. She had picked up his phone to silence an alarm while he was in the bathroom, and the screen had lit up with a notification from an unsaved number. Just 5 words, but 5 words that contained an entire story. Can't wait to see you. She had stood in their bedroom in Lekki, her husband's phone in her hand, and she had felt the particular cold that comes not from surprise but from confirmation. Because some part of her had known for weeks. The late nights. The cologne applied at 9 p.m. when he was supposedly going to meet a client. The phone that never left his hand and always faced downward on every flat surface. The laugh she heard him use on certain calls, lighter than his regular laugh, more effort in it, the laugh of a man performing. She had put the phone down, gone to the kitchen, and finished cooking EBA and egusi. She had served it. She had sat across from him at dinner and watched him eat, and she had decided something. She did not confront him that night. Or the week after. She called her younger sister Ngozi in Abuja, and she talked for 2 hours. She called her old friend Sola, who was a lawyer on Lagos Island, and she had a different kind of conversation. She started paying closer attention to the things she already had access to, the company accounts, the asset records, the registration documents. She had been a signatory on some of those documents from the beginning. She had never stopped being one. One night, 3 weeks after finding the message, she came home from an errand and stood in the hallway and heard Emeka in the bedroom, his voice low and loose, the way men's voices go when they think nobody is listening. I'm done, Chidinma. I'm serious. I've been done for a long time. I just need to handle it properly. A pause. Yes. I deserve better. A man like me, I deserve better. Adore stood in her own hallway and listened to her husband tell another woman that he deserved better. Then she set her bag down on the hallway table, very carefully, and walked into the kitchen and sat down on a stool and pressed both her palms flat against the countertop and breathed. It took her 4 minutes to stop shaking. Then she picked up her phone and sent a message. Not to Ngozi. Not to Sola. To a number she had saved under a business contact name. The message was 4 words. We can move forward. That was the moment she stopped hurting and started planning. And from that point on, the woman Emeka saw every day in his house, the quiet, composed woman who made his son's lunch and attended his business dinners and did not fight him or question him or raise her voice, was not a woman who had accepted her situation. She was a woman who was building the end of his. She started with her body. Not for him, she was very clear about that with herself, in the private conversations she had with the mirror every morning. She started going to the gym at 6 a.m. before Tabena woke up, not because she believed her body needed to be fixed, but because she needed to feel strong and the gym was where strength was available. Within 6 weeks, she felt different. Not smaller, stronger. There is a difference that certain women understand viscerally, the difference between shrinking and sharpening. She started dressing differently. Not dramatically. Just with more intention. She bought 2 blazers, some heels she had not worn since before the pregnancy, a perfume that cost more than she would previously have spent on herself without guilt. She was reclaiming square footage in her own life, room by room. Meanwhile she was doing the other work. The quiet work. She spent 3 evenings going through financial records she had legitimate access to. She met Sola for lunch and they talked about company law and spousal rights and asset documentation, and she listened carefully and asked good questions. She found that certain decisions made in the early years of the company, decisions made in her name, with her signature, on paperwork she had signed across a shared desk in Isael Eco, gave her a position that Emeka had never thought to revisit. He had been too busy becoming important to remember how he had started. She made a phone call one Tuesday morning while Emeka was at the office. She sat in the living room of their Lekki house with the curtains open and the sun coming in, and she spoke clearly and without hesitation to the person on the other end. "Everything is in place," she said. "Just wait for my signal." She hung up. She finished her tea. She went to pick up Tabena from school. Emeka, for his part, was escalating. He had been taking Chidinma to restaurants in Ikoyi, buying her things, talking to her about the future the way men talk when they have decided the current chapter is nearly finished. Chidinma was 24, a brand influencer who lived in a serviced apartment in Onairu, and she was beautiful in the kind of way that makes a certain kind of man feel that his life is going in the right direction. She called him Bogami in a voice that made him feel taller. After the Adesoa Capital event, he told her one afternoon, leaning across the restaurant table and lowering his voice like he was sharing something sacred, "Everything changes. I'm making a major announcement at that event. New partnerships. New chapter." He paused. "New life." Chidinma smiled at him. She reached across the table and touched his hand. "I'll be there," she said. "You will," he said. "Front row." He drove home that evening feeling the specific lightness of a man who has convinced himself that destroying one life to begin another is actually a form of courage. Adore was in the kitchen when he came in. She looked up and said, "How was your day?" and he said, "Fine," and went upstairs, and neither of them noticed that this exchange had become the entire architecture of their daily life. He mentioned the Adesoa Capital event at dinner 2 days later. It was a high-profile gathering, investors, business owners, Lagos money in one room. Emeka's company was one of 5 being spotlighted by the organizers. "I'll need you there," he told Adore, not looking up from his phone. "It looks better." She nodded. "Of course," she said. "I'll be there." Something in her voice made him look up briefly. She was cutting Tabena's meat with the same focused calm she gave to everything. He looked at her for a moment and then looked back at his phone. He did not notice that she had answered him without asking what to wear. Without asking what time. Without any of the small logistics questions she usually brought. She had simply said yes with the certainty of someone who was already prepared. If you've been watching from the beginning, this is the moment to drop a comment. Tell us, do you think Emeka had any idea what was coming? Because we're about to find out. Like this video if you're staying till the end. It gets so much bigger from here. The Adesoa Capital event was held on a Thursday evening at a hotel in Victoria Island. The kind of event where the chairs have cushions and the name cards are printed on thick paper and the people in the room are there to be seen as much as to see. By 7 p.m., the space was full of Lagos in its most deliberate form, wealth assembled and presenting itself. Emeka arrived at 6:45 in a navy kaftan and Italian shoes. He had told Adore the event started at 8. It started at 7. He had done this calculation carefully, leaving himself an hour to find Chidinma, settle her at a table, and then receive Adore when she arrived late, present her to people briefly, and manage the geography of the evening. He walked in, shook 3 hands, accepted a drink, and scanned the room for Chidinma. He found her. She was standing near the far end of the room in a black dress and gold earrings, and she was talking to someone. He started moving toward her, nodding at faces he recognized, and as he got closer he saw who she was talking to more clearly. He stopped. Chidinma was standing with Adore. They were not arguing. They were not positioned with the body language of 2 women who had just discovered each other and were managing a scene. They were standing together the way people stand when they have been talking for a while and are comfortable. Adore had a glass in her hand. She was wearing a white and gold ensemble and her hair was done in a way he had not seen in months, pulled back, clean, the way she had worn it in the early years when she was always the most composed person in a room. She was laughing at something. Then Chidinma said something and Adore nodded, and then they both looked up, and both of them looked directly at him. The drink in his hand became a problem. He did not know what to do with his hand. He walked toward them because there was nothing else to do. His legs moved him forward while his mind ran in several directions simultaneously, searching for the version of this situation that he could manage. "Emeka," Adore said pleasantly. "You're early." Yes." He looked at Chidinma. Chidinma looked back at him with an expression that was careful and unreadable. "I didn't know you too." "Chidinma and I have been speaking for a few weeks," Adore said. Her voice was conversational, unhurried, the tone of a woman discussing something that has already been fully processed. "She reached out to me." Emeka looked at Chidinma. "You reached out to her?" "Yes," Chidinma said. And for the first time, there was something in her voice that was not the easy warmth he was used to hearing. Something that had more weight to it. "I'm sorry, Emeka. I didn't know the full picture for a long time. When I understood it, I couldn't continue." "What full picture?" His voice dropped. "What did she tell you?" "What I told her," Adore said evenly, "is the truth. Which you have not been telling either of us." The room continued around them, voices, laughter, the clink of glasses, completely indifferent to the fact that a man's entire constructed world was dismantling itself in the space of 2 meters. Adore opened the small clutch she was holding and removed a folded document. "I had this prepared 3 weeks ago," she said. She held it out to him. "I am the 49% shareholder of Okonkwo Logistics and Freight Limited on record. I have been since the beginning. You never changed it because you never thought you needed to." She paused. "You also never thought I would use it." He took the document because she was holding it out and there was nothing else to do. He looked at it. His own signature was on the bottom of the second page, from 2019, next to hers, on the original incorporation papers. "I'm not here to destroy the company," she said. "I have a son. I don't want to destroy what I helped build. But I want what is mine. And that conversation will happen with lawyers." She tilted her head slightly. "Tonight was just so that you would know, in front of the same kinds of people who were there when you called me Shapeless, that I know exactly what I am worth." Emeka opened his mouth. "Don't," she said quietly. Not unkindly. Just finally. She turned to Chidinma. "Thank you," she said. "For doing the right thing." Chidinma nodded. She looked at Emeka one more time. "I hope you figure out what kind of man you actually want to be," she said. And then she walked away, and she did not look back. Emeka stood there with the document in his hand. Across the room, 3 of his business contacts were watching. He could see them watching. One of them leaned toward another and said something. He could not hear what was said, but he understood the posture. He had used that posture himself in other situations, the lean-in of men who have just seen something useful. By 9 o'clock, 2 people had asked him where Adore had gone. By 9:30, his phone had a message from his most important investor, a brief 3 lines saying they would need to revisit the terms of their upcoming agreement and asking to schedule a call. Emeka stood in a corner of a room full of expensive people and understood what collapse felt like when it happens in public and everyone can see it but nobody says anything directly. He called Adore. She did not answer. He stepped outside the hotel and called her again. Voicemail. He sat in his car in the parking lot for a long time. Then he drove home. If you are still watching this, and we know you are, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this channel is built for people who want the full story. Not just the drama. The full story. Hit subscribe and ring the bell. The house was quiet when he got back. Tebena was asleep. The housekeeper was in her room. Adore was not there. He walked through the rooms, turning on lights, and the house was perfectly in order. Nothing was missing, nothing was chaotic, there was no dramatic evidence of departure. Just a note on the kitchen counter in her handwriting that said she was at her sister's and Tebena was fine and they would talk through Sola. He sat down at the kitchen table. He thought about the dinner in Isale Eco, the early years, the second-hand desk, the first contract she had gotten him through her father. He thought about the night Tebena was born and how he had held his son in the delivery room and felt something so large he had not known what to call it, and Adore had watched him from the hospital bed with her hair stuck to her forehead from effort, and she had smiled at him in a way he had not deserved even then and had deserved less and less since. He thought about Chief Balogun's party. Look at her. Completely shapeless. He pressed his palms flat against the table. He had said that about his wife. He had said that in public, about a woman who had put her 240,000 naira into his hands and her father's contact into his phone and her years into his company. He had stood in a room full of people and offered her up as a punchline about his own disappointment. He picked up his phone and called his mother in Asaba. It was late but she answered, because mothers answer. "Naam," she said. "Why are you calling at this hour?" "Mama," he said. "I've done something bad." His mother was quiet for a moment. "How bad?" He told her. Not all of it, but enough. He told her about the things he had said, the woman in Onairu, the event, the document, the parking lot. When he finished, his mother was quiet again for longer than was comfortable. "Emeka," she said. "Yes. That woman left her father's house and came to build with you when you had nothing. You understand what that means? She staked herself on you. And you had the mouth to call her shapeless?" He said nothing. "Shapeless," his mother repeated, and she said it with a weight that made it sound like what it was, a verdict, not just a word. "Emeka. Shape is what a person gives to things. That woman gave shape to your company, your home, your child. She is shape. You were the one with no shape, and she built you one." He put his head down on the kitchen table. "Mama. Go and beg that woman properly," his mother said. "Not with flowers. Not with money. With your life. Show her with your life. If she takes you back, thank God every morning. If she doesn't," his mother paused. "If she doesn't, then learn to live with being the kind of man who had gold in his hands and called it ordinary." She hung up. The weeks that followed were the longest of Emeka Okonkwo's life. Sola managed the legal conversations professionally and without drama. Adore was not vindictive, she was precise. She knew exactly what she wanted, she stated it clearly, and she did not move from it. A fair share of the company assets. A structured arrangement for Tebena. A clean, documented separation of the things that were hers from the things that were his. His major investor did not pull out entirely, but the terms changed, and the change was costly. Two of his business associates who had been at the Victoria Island event became suddenly less available for calls. The story had moved through Lagos the way Lagos stories always move, not loudly, but completely, so that within 2 weeks everyone who needed to know knew, and everyone's behavior reflected what they now knew. Chidinma sent him one final message. It said, "I wish it had been different. Take care of yourself." He read it 3 times. Then he deleted the thread. He wrote Adore a letter. He did not expect anything from it. He wrote it because there was something he needed to say that did not belong in a legal document and would not survive a phone call. He wrote it by hand on paper, the way she had written notes in the early years, and he gave it to Sola to pass on. He did not know if she would read it. He did not attach any conditions to it. She read it. She did not call him. But Sola told him she had read it, and that she acknowledged it. That was all. Adore moved into a flat in Bagada that she had put a deposit on 2 months before the Victoria Island event. She had been preparing in every direction simultaneously, the way builders prepare, not just the visible structure, but the foundation, the drainage, the things that only matter if something goes wrong. She set Tebena up with a weekly schedule between both parents that gave him stability and continuity. She went back to some business contacts she had been maintaining quietly for years and began conversations about something she had been thinking about building for herself, separate from Okonkwo Logistics, something with her name on it. She was 31 years old. She had a first-class degree and a decade of operational business experience and a son she loved without limit and a clarity about herself that had been forged in the specific fire of being underestimated by someone who should have known better. She was not bitter. She was honest about this with Ngozi, who had expected more rage. "I was angry," Adore said, sitting in Ngozi's flat in Abuja on a Saturday with small chops between them and Tebena asleep in the next room. "I was angry for a long time. But it's like, the anger was information. It told me what I needed to do. Once I did it, the anger finished its job and it left." "You're too calm," Ngozi said. "I'm not calm," Adore said. "I'm free. They're different things." She looked out of the window at the Abuja evening, at the city going quiet, and she thought about the girl who had sat across a second-hand desk in Isale Eco with 240,000 naira and a father's phone number and a belief in a man who had not yet become anything. She had not been wrong to believe. She had been right to believe. The believing had not been the mistake. The staying in silence while she was erased, that had been the thing to correct. She had corrected it. Emeka would have a harder road. Not because she had punished him beyond what was fair, but because the thing he had lost could not be recovered by legal renegotiation or good behavior or even sincere regret. He had lost the specific irreplaceable thing of a woman who had chosen him completely, and that kind of loss does not have a resolution. It has only a reckoning. He thought about her every day. He was honest about that with himself, standing in the Lekki house that now had too much space in it, making Tebena's lunch on the mornings his son was with him, learning the rhythms of a home that he had previously floated through without registering. He was learning, finally and too late, how much work had been invisible. How many things had simply been handled. How much of his comfortable life had been the product of a woman he had described as shapeless. He did not call her again after the letter. He let her go with the only dignity he had left, the dignity of not pursuing what was not his to pursue. He parented his son well. He rebuilt what could be rebuilt in the business. He became, slowly and effortfully, the kind of man who noticed things. Who said thank you. Who did not think that arriving was the end of the work. Whether that was enough, whether it was too late, whether it was anything at all, was a question that had no clean answer. Some lessons arrive in time to change everything. Some arrive in time to change you, but not in time to save what you damaged. Both kinds cost the same. The last thing Adore did before she left the Lekki house permanently was walk through every room. Not to take anything she hadn't already taken. Just to walk through. She stood in the kitchen where she had cooked 1,000 meals. She stood in the office where she had once sat doing company accounts after midnight. She stood in the doorway of Tebena's bedroom and looked at the wall where his height chart was penciled in from age 1 to age 4, each line with a date beside it in her handwriting. She did not feel sad. She felt the weight of real things, of years, of love that had been real even if it had ended, of a life that had cost something and produced something, of a woman who had entered a story as a supporting character and had written herself, quietly and without permission, into the ending. She walked out of the house, got into her car, and drove. She had her shape. She had always had it. He had just never looked closely enough to see. If this story reached you tonight, if any part of it sat with you in a real way, please like this video right now and share it with one person. You never know who is watching something like this alone and quietly recognizing their own life in it. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this, real, raw, Nigerian stories about love and power and the choices people make when they think no one is watching. We are here every week. And drop a comment before you go. Tell us the moment this story changed for you. Was it the parking lot? The letter? The kitchen table at midnight? Was it Adore walking out, or was it Emeka finally understanding what he had? Tell us. We read every single one. And we will see you in the next story.